Hey everybody. Former President Bill Clinton has come under intense attack for his full-throated defense of the crime bill of 1994, what is really called the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994. It seems to me that the people who are talking, even the pundits on, for example, MSNBC Joy Reid, for example, and others, either weren't really paying attention then or and didn't read the crime bill, or perhaps read the crime bill and forgot what it consisted of, and forgot the events that gave rise to its creation and passage. Let me share with you but one of those events. July 1st, 1993 was really a bright, sunny day in San Francisco, an afternoon, about 1 o'clock. And I went to Royal Exchange to hang out early and Royal Exchange is on Sacramento and Front Street. Great bar, great cobb salad to this day. Go and check it out. Great calabar for University of California students like myself. I got my master's degree in city planning from Cal. Was on the Alumni Board from 98 to 2001. 1998 to 2000, actually 2003, but I digress. Bottom line is it was a great day. But the television switched to channel 2 because just around 3 o'clock or so at that time, there were reports of a shooting at 101 California Street. Now, to give you an idea of where 101 California Street is with respect to where Royal Exchange is, Royal Exchange is on Sacramento and Front Street here. If you go down Front Street, this is California, okay? 101 California is right there. So basically, you just go down the block, across California, over here, and the giant skyscraper that is 101 California is right there, designed by Philip Johnson. Steel and glass, iconic skyscraper that, when it was proposed and built, was unlike anything San Francisco had seen before. That's another story. A man by the name of Gianni Ferri went up to the 34th floor to a law firm called Pettit and Martin. He got off in the elevator and started to randomly shoot people using assault weapons. There was a woman that I knew from Cal who worked at Pettit and Martin as associate, just started, Terry Present. And I was worried for Terry. I was able to call her. Couldn't get a hold of her. Gianni Ferri walked through and eventually killed 9 people and injured 7 others, ruining the lives of many, and impacted the lives of countless people forever. Pettit and Martin closed in 2001. So, that event, and others like it, gave rise to a call for a sweeping crime bill. In 1994, in fact, the same year, Oakland had 140 homicides. It had, I believe, 127 the year before, something like that. But 140 homicides was the largest number of homicides Oakland had ever had in its history, ever to that point. It topped it in 2006, I might add, with 145. The Violent Crime and Law Enforcement Act was, and really is, because you can still read it, a 363-page document that was sweeping, far-reaching in scope. So for anyone to say that it negatively impacted the black community, locked up black folks, or did all this stuff, really doesn't know what they're talking about to begin with. For example, do you realize that the Violence Against Women Act started with the 1994 crime bill, with the same bill that many are criticizing? Do you realize that the start of funding for halfway houses, for escape places for victims of domestic violence started with the crime bill? Do you realize that the 1994 crime bill had an assault weapons ban that we have not had the collective will to establish today? in an era of mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting? Do you realize that? Do you realize that that same bill that Bill Clinton is getting so much negative publicity for is the same bill that put 1,000 cops on the street, that funded and gave rise to community policing, that had a provision within it that said that the U.S. Justice Department was supposed to give an annual report on the use of excessive force by police programs around the United States. Something that was never done, I might add. Never done. So, have you ever bothered to read the damn bill? No, you haven't. Do you realize what was going on at the time? No, you don't. Let me give you a rundown of some of the other programs that were listed within this bill. And this is directly from the Justice Department. This isn't a Wikipedia listing. Assault weapons. Bans the manufacture of 19 military-style assault weapons. Death penalty. Domestic abuse. Firearm licensing. Fraud. Drug crimes. Immigration. Juveniles. It provided for, and this is not a good part of it, but it provided for the prosecution of kids as young as 13 for adult crimes. Repeat sex offenders, 3 strikes, victim of crime, immigration initiatives, grant programs, the Brady Bill implementation, competitive grant program for states to upgrade criminal history records, keeping an eye, so as to permit compliance with the Brady Act. $100 million appropriated in 1995. In addition, the Brady Act authorizes $100 million for fiscal year 96. $50 million of this was authorized to be expanded from the Violent Crime Control Act Trust Fund. Burn grants, community schools, boot camps, drug courts, a hotline, competitive grant program to establish a national domestic violence hotline. I mean, all of this is sweeping. Crime prevention block grants, delinquents and at-risk youth, drug treatment, local partnership act, police corps. Yes, some of the provisions of this bill should not have been done at the time in retrospect. But here's the problem. Prior to the passage of the Violent Crime and Law Enforcement Act of 1994, police departments around the country, including Oakland, were quite literally up against it. How do I know? I was a columnist with the Montclarian from 1993 to 1996. From 95, late 95, going to 96, Oakland Mayor Elihu Harris hired me as his economic advisor. So I was there to see the impact of this act. In 1993, 94, homicides in Oakland, it was 149 homicides in Oakland in 1994, excuse me. Well, I can't find the data for 95. Guess what? 1996, the number dropped to 92 homicides. And it continued to stay under 100 for the next 5 years. That was due, in part, large part, to the crime bill that people are criticizing today. It made Oakland a safer community. It allowed us to hire more cops. It allowed us to get assault weapons off the street. We had gun buyback programs, including that. It was really effective. It really was. Here's the main overarching problem. Then, in the 90s, drugs were considered to be a problem of the black poor, okay? Particularly heroin. Drugs weren't thought of as being a white problem, even though we knew that, white folks did drugs and marijuana and that sort of thing. But it was thought of as being a black problem. Today, drugs are thought of particularly heroin, as being not just not a black problem anymore, it's a white problem, which means it's everybody's problem. So now, the 1994 crime bill that was so good then, because it only focused on drugs and black, and the idea was it only focused on black folks, is now today thought of by some as being bad, because hey, white people use drugs and white folks have a problem, so now we got to decriminalize everything. You see what I'm getting at? It was okay to criminalize it when it was focused in the black community, but now that it's a white problem, oh, we have to decriminalize it. Think about it. Think about what I'm saying to you. Think hard about what I'm saying to you. And at the same time, we don't have an assault weapons ban. And you know something else that came out of the Violence Against Women Act, which is still active? The Cyber Crimes Act, the the Act to Prevent Cyberbullying, which was installed in 2005 as a rider provision. Okay? Do you know what you're talking about when you criticize this bill? Yes, there are parts of it, again, it's sunset in 2004, that should not have been there, but given the climate of the times, they were appropriate. Given what was happening then, they were appropriate. And again, it did sunset. It did sunset. The real problem we have not solved since then is we still have an assault weapons problem. In fact, it's enormous. We have open carry laws that people are openly defending in Georgia, walking around airports with their assault weapons saying, oh, this is okay, at a time when terrorism is a concern, a big one, including domestic terrorism. So in this context, you're going to tell me that the 1994 crime bill was this terrible thing and that Bill Clinton did this terrible thing? I think you need to reassess what you're talking about. You really do.